One day in 1994, my uncle came to us with signs of anger and distress visible on his face because of his inability to transport the goods from the warehouses to his wholesale store located in the same town as mine. The carts pulled by donkeys were the means of transporting goods in this small town. On this day, my uncle was unable to transport merchandise due to an accident at the caravan stop, which led to the death of one of the young boys who was driving one of the carts. On the one hand, and between the trailer driver and the porters on the other. And after that incident, at exactly 12 o'clock at night of the same day, my grandmother was standing in the east of our apartment on the ground floor, and suddenly she came running to us and said in horror that she had seen a cart running without a driver, and she was being followed by a group of dogs that were barking furiously. And in the situation I linked between what my grandmother says and the incident of the boy's death, but I did not disclose what came to my mind. And the next night, at about the same time, we heard hysterical barking of dogs under the window of my room, and when we looked down, we found a dog whose body was raised to the top of its feet, as if someone was holding it and waving it in an ugly circular manner, and around it was a group of dogs that were barking hysterically, as if they were seeing something. Would you want to attack him? And then it started to get worse. The next night, at exactly midnight, we were surprised by a barrage of bricks and stones raining down on the windows of our house. These strange events continued for 3 consecutive nights, and I was trying to communicate with this thing, believing inside me that it was the ghost of the dead boy, so I was turning it off. Light my room and start talking to him and tell him let's be friends, and I find the palm of a child waving at me from behind the window, and the news started to spread in the family, and I told my father, but he did not believe, and he told me that these are myths that have no evidence, so I told him if he waited until midnight and you will believe me and see for yourself. Indeed, the dogs started barking and blocks of bricks and sand came towards our apartment. So my father opened the window to curse those who do this, until the surprise came. All the kitchen utensils, such as cookers, spoons, and others, were lying in the street, and my father accused me of doing that, but fortunately, my innocence appeared because I had spent the day with my aunt's daughter, and my father began to follow the strange phenomenon until he saw for himself a donkey's hoofs knocking on the window. We were determined to expel this ghost, so we sought the help of one of the sheiks, who recommended us to read the Quran in addition to some other advice. Indeed, the incidents ended after nearly 2 months had passed, and we spent them in real terror. One dark and stormy night, there was an old abandoned house at the end of a remote road. This house was known for its scary rumors and terrifying stories. No one dares to enter it or approach it because of the suspicious events that people claim have occurred in it. On that rainy and stormy night, there were 3 friends named Mike, Sarah, and John. They loved scary stories and exciting challenges, and they decided to visit the abandoned house to see if the rumors were true or not. As they were nearing the house, the wind began to blow through the nearby bushes, and the sound of rain was falling heavily on the ground. They approached the front door of the house, which was disfigured and worn out. They carefully opened the door and entered. There was an air of complete darkness, and the floor was covered in dust and mold. Suddenly, they heard a terrifying sound like shrieking coming from upstairs. They exchanged terrified looks and decided to go upstairs to find out the source of the sound. They began to climb the old stairs, the logs cracking under their feet. Dust and cobwebs splattered from the crumbling roofs as they climbed. They reached the top floor and there, in a darkened room, they saw the shadow of someone slowly moving. They froze in place and realized that there was something abnormal in that room. Suddenly, the shadow moved very quickly towards them. They narrowly escaped from the room and rushed towards the stairs. However, terrifying sounds abounded around them, and the electric lights began to flicker on and off. The wind was banging against the windows, as if the storm was plotting a frightful thing against them. They continued to run through the rickety staircases, while behind them they heard menacing voices and terrified screams. At last, they reached down and came out of the abandoned house, breathing hard and their hearts beating wildly. After they had gone a little further from the house, they looked back and saw that the storm had passed and the sky was clear. They exchanged looks and recalled the terrifying events they had experienced. They were unable to explain what had happened, but they knew that they had escaped from something evil that dreadful night. They decided not to return to the abandoned house again, determined not to delve into its mysteries and secrets. From then on, the abandoned house becomes just a frightful memory in their mind, a reminder of the brave adventure they had on that frightful and stormy night.